Hi, so this is the Google Sheet that hopefully looks familiar to you or something along the lines of it, and we're going to be using this Google Sheet for our second project. So we've got some one-time costs here, descriptions and the cost, and then there's a place for you to put the total. One-time cost might be something like the cost of the car. And then you would put in the cost of the car, making up numbers here, and you could end up with the total down here by adding these up. Now you can actually add them up yourself and put the total in. You can also make a formula. The equal sign is the way we start a formula, and then we would you can simply add the different cells together. You can also use what's called the sum formula, meaning that it just adds up everything. So equals sum, open parentheses, and then you can select the cells that you want to add up and press enter. So once you have all of those costs in, you can do a formula that way. Same thing with the recurring costs. So gas or fuel, you might have, and tires, sorry for the yawn, and registration, and let's say AAA. There's just some in there. So cost per trip. Now these are values you would find by figuring out how often you get gas, how much that gas costs, and then divvying that up over the number of trips that happen in that amount of time. So I'm going to just make up some numbers here. So let's say that the cost per trip here is $1.25. For tires, it's 20 cents. Registration, it's 5 cents. And AAA is, oh gosh, I'm just making up numbers, so it doesn't really matter, but let's say it's 75 cents. I'm not sure that's accurate, but we can do the total the same way here. Equals sum, open parenthesis. That's in my way. You can close it, and then you can select all of those. Oh, wait. Equals sum, and then select those. Okay, so I've got my recurring cost being $2.25 here. So then I'm going to type in a formula, okay, for the total cost of any number of trips. So the total cost for any number of trips is going to be my one-time costs. So it's going to be 12,000 plus my recurring cost, 225, times my number of trips, whatever you want to use as the variable for number of trips is totally fine. I'm going to use T. Okay, so this makes sense for my formula, that I would have the one-time cost just happening once, and then the number of trips times my repeating costs. So for me, the cost of owning and operating the car for a month, oh wait, did that just go away? Oh, push enter. There we go. Now it's back. When you are in a cell and you've typed something and you scroll, what will happen is it will go with you. So let's say I type just the word type and I scroll around. See how that moved with me? It's a little disorienting sometimes. So just so you know, that happens. So the cost of owning and operating the car for a month, that's going to depend on how many trips I take in a month. So let's say that I take 50 trips in a month. Let's just go with that. So you can actually type in the math here so that you don't have to do it on a calculator. This kind of acts as a calculator. You just have to start with the equal sign. So I can put in 12,000 plus 225 times 50, if that's the number of trips I take in a month. And then it will tell me the answer. If you don't like that this is over on the side and this is in the middle, what you can do is you can change the alignment. So over here, that's the horizontal alignment because it's along that horizontal line. And choose center, and then that will show up in the center for you. So that would be the cost of owning and operating my car for a month. Now, it does have the cost of the car. So if you take out the $12,000, really it was $112.50 to own the car for a month. But that's kind of what we're looking at here. Cost of owning and operating the car for 10 years. So again, I had 50 trips for a month. For 10 years, that's going to be 50 times 12 times 10. So the times 12 is 12 months in a year, and the 10 years. So that's what I'm going to have here. So you can do this still. 12,000 plus 225 times, and you don't really need parentheses, but they'll work here. So 225 I already had. We wanted 50 times 12 times 10. And there's my cost of owning and operating the car for 10 years. Okay, so if you take out the 12,000 here, I end up with about $13,000 that I've spent in 10 years on the car, which doesn't quite seem like enough, but that's fine. I can make a table as well. I can go up by however many years or trips I want at a time. This is going up by 1 trip. You could go up by 10 trips if you wanted to. That's fine. However you want to lay this out so that you've got a reasonable table that you like the look of when you make your graph. So I'm going to type in my formula, 12,000 plus 225 times the number of trips. Now this time I'm going to use a cell reference because that's going to make it easier for me to utilize the other features of my table. So I'm just going to either type in the cell, which is F6, or I can just click on it to bring it up. Okay, so it's 12,000 plus 225 times 0. So press enter there. And now I can simply drag my formula down. And then that will show up, except that I don't like the borders, but I can help you fix that. So once again, once I've typed this in, I'm copying it from the corner. So you have to select the cell from the center by just clicking it once, and then you're going to click on the corner and drag from the corner to copy that. Now to fix the borders, this is the border area, and it shows you all the different ways you could have borders here. So you could have borders just on the outside. You could have borders on just one side there. So there's one side that we want borders. In fact, I think I have to take out the borders and put them back in. So I've taken out all the borders, and then I want a top border. Oh, it changed the size of it. Okay, let's try that again. So top border is going to be thicker, like so. We'll just click top border, side border, bottom border. So the thickness was right here. You can change the way it looks all over the place, but this is the thickness that we've used in the activity. So that's all set up now. I can go back. There we go. Now my border is fixed. All right, a graph. We're going to put in a graph right here. Okay. So I need to select my data first, and then I'm going to insert a chart. That's the way they describe graphs in Google Sheets. So I'm inserting a chart. So you can go to the Insert Chart there. That's one way to do it. Or you can click on this little icon here, which is for inserting a chart. Either one is fine. They're exactly the same. So here's my dialog box for a chart. Now this is not the kind of chart I want. There are two different values that I want to go together. There's my number of months, which is like my input, and there's the cost, not number of months, number of trips, which is my input, and there's the cost, which is my output. So I would like, in this case, to have a bunch of dots to describe that. It's a scatter plot. This looks more like what I want my data to look like. And then I should go to customization, because I should really be showing a title and titling my axes, and it didn't show up when I did that. In fact, if I were to cancel, part of the reason why it didn't show up is because I did not grab the titles here of the columns. So if I do that instead, if I click from the titles of the columns that I entered my graph, now it's got labels and things. So I still have to change my chart type to a scatter plot. And I might still want a different title for these things. I'm not going to put in a legend. There we go. And I want cost of trips. So cost of owning and driving my car based on the number of trips I take. Something like that. I mean, you don't need it to be that long of a title, but that is what I have made my title. You can change the fonts. You can change the size of the fonts for the titles. You can change the color of the fonts for the titles. There's green. It looks very much the same as black to me right now. Let's change it to red, so it's very different. There we go. So you can change the colors of those things. The legend you would have been able to as well. You can change the font type. It will only let you change it for the entire graph. So if I change it to narrow, it changes everything to narrow. And if I change it to wide, it changes everything to wide. So that's, you have some control over the way way each of the fonts looks, but you do not have control over whether or not it's a different font for each spot. So, which is good design. So let's see, horizontal axis. You can change it from number of trips if you wanted to. You can change whether or not you want the title to be bolded. You can change the size you want the title. You can change the color of the title. Same thing with the number axis. Labels are the numbers along that axis. And you can change the way you want the axis to look. So you can change the minimum and maximum. This goes from 0 to 60. You could make it go from 0 to 50 if you wanted to. That would be fine. And your grid lines is the number of lines that come up off of that axis. This actually looks perfect because there's one aligning with each of the dots. So I'm just going to leave it like that. We can go to the vertical axis. Total cost seems like a good title for that axis. And I can change my minimum and maximum as well if I wanted to. Right now it starts at 12,000. Most graphs really start at 0, and then we would go to some amount. But when you start at 0, it makes it look like there's no change whatsoever. So I don't think we'll start at 0. I think we'll leave that at 12,000. Well, actually, if I just take this out, it should automatically go back to what it was. There we go. Okay, and the number of grid lines. So again, well, there are 4 this time. So 5. There are 5, and you could change that if you wanted to. So you would have a slightly different layout here. Since there are 6 dots, if you changed your major grid lines to 6, it doesn't quite go through all of them because they're not laid out perfectly, but it's closer to them. But 5, I think, looked fine for estimating where that goes. And let's see, you can change the color of the dots. You can change the size of the dots. It's really big dots. You can change what the dots look like. I could make them stars. That would be totally fine. I like circles. And there's other things you can do here. You can also connect your dots with a line. Down here at trend line, you're going to open that up and click linear, and there's a line now. And if you had your legend, so if I leave my legend at the right here, now we can see the trend line information has shown up. If you scroll back down, so when you click on trendline and you choose that, it opens up some other labels or other menus below it. And so the label you can actually change to the equation. So 225 times x plus 12,000, which is basically what we were using before as well. And once we are done with that, we insert our graph. We then need to resize it a little bit to fit into our space. Well, let's drag it first. There we go. Let's get right into that corner. And then, oh, that looks good. Or you can make it smaller so that it's centered. Either way is fine. But there is our graph. So there we have it. That is the work that you need to do on your project. When you submit this, what you're going to do is you're going to click this share button up here. Okay. And I've already made a shareable link, but this won't show up when you this won't show up when you click shareable link. You'll have to click get shareable link right here, and then this will show up. You can choose can view, can edit, can comment. If you choose can edit, then I can see any formulas you used. If you don't use can edit, then I can still make a copy to see those, but that's the way you would do that. And then when you are done, you're just going to click done. And you can then go into MyOpenMath. Let me log in here and go to our class. And so then there's a spot to turn this in. If you go down to, go to a different class. Let me go to this class. If you go down to week 6 down here, there's week 6. There's Big Idea 2 project paper, so I'm going to click on that. This gives me instructions for making a shareable link, but I can simply paste my Google Doc link or Google Sheets link here, and that's going to be the way that I turn that in. So I could submit that, and it's all set up for me. Now it will mark it wrong to begin with because I need to actually grade it to give you points, but it is turned in once you get this score information. You can send a message if you are worried that it's not turned in. We can check it. That's that. Thanks so much.